Business growth and economic development is what keeps our region, localities, state, country alive.
So what is it about our area that attracts employers? What's your pitch when you're talking to corporations thinking about moving here?
How much time do you have, Karl? That's one of those questions.
Give me the top 10.
I love it.
Hi, I'm Karl Weisecker, Principal Broker at Kline Realty. Thank you for joining me for another Kline Realty podcast. Today, my guest is Dr. Jay Langston. He's the Director of the Shenandoah Valley Partnership, and his job is to help with economic development in our area. Thanks so much for joining me, Jay.
It's a pleasure to be here,
Great
Karl.
to have you here.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
So let's start with some of the basics. The Shenandoah Valley Partnership and economic development. Mm-hmm. What does that really mean? And how did you get into that line of work?
Yeah, no one grows up as a kid going, I'm going to go into economic development, because they've never heard of it. For most of us, it is something that we have fallen into. I had a background briefly in construction, which project management, which is a lot of what we do. Was at the right place at the right time and got hired into economic development, and have been doing that now more than 40 years. And what we do to put a lens on our work is, at the Shenandoah Valley Partnership, we're a nonprofit. We work on behalf of 12 localities here in the Shenandoah Valley region and 100 plus businesses that believe in business growth that's good for the communities, and it's good for the citizens.
What's that footprint?
That footprint is from Shenandoah County, Strasburg, think that all the way to Rockbridge, Buena Vista, and Lexington. So 140 miles on I-81 is the way I like to describe it. And it includes Bath and Highland. So we have a very disparate region in some ways in terms of capabilities, population, and those kinds of things. So it's a challenge, but it's a lot of fun as well.
Right, yeah, what a wide range. So what kinds of projects, just to give folks an example, what are some of the projects you've worked on? And then the real bottom line is, what does that mean for the average person in our area? Why is economic development a good thing?
That's a great question. I'm going to address the last part first. Business growth and economic development is what keeps our region, localities, state, country alive. Without that growth, people don't have the jobs. And it's tax revenue as well. So we are working on behalf of the community in the region to make sure that we have a vibrant and prosperous economy, that we have businesses that are growing, that they're hiring people. It's about quality of life. It's about amenities, and we want people to have that opportunity. And then the tax revenue really helps support the communities, the schools, the cultural amenities, and tourism assets. And that is something that we embrace in a very large overview of the work that we do. It is encompassing both community development, tourism development, and traditional economic development. Some of the projects that we're working on, we're blessed because we have a very strong food and beverage background, and that's based upon agriculture, which is so important and the largest business sector in the region. Food and beverage have grown out of that. We are many times above the average in the country for food and beverage. We continue to work a lot of food and beverage projects, but we also have a diverse economy. A lot of people may not understand that, but we have the pharmaceutical side of things. We worked with Merck, along with Rockingham County, and the State Economic Development Partnership to make sure that Merck had the opportunity to expand. So we were fortunate to have this expansion announced in October of last year, a $3 billion project, which is the largest project I've personally ever worked on. That is atypical. They're typically not that large, but we are working with a number of food and beverage. We're working with companies that are in the machinery and metal fabrication side of things. We have companies that are in the process type of work in terms of their operations. Like machining as well is one of those.
So what is it about our area that attracts employers? What's your pitch when you're talking to corporations thinking about moving here?
How much time do you have, Karl? That's one of those questions.
Give me the top 10.
I love. It is partly because, and here's a couple of facts that most people don't really know, and it's an advantage for us, is I talk about this. I've been here 7.5 years in the Valley and absolutely love it. We have a growing population. We're rural in the aggregate sense of things. We have not even 400,000 people over that long footprint that I talked about, yet we're growing in population. That sets us apart because most rural areas are not growing. Second, manufacturing is the largest private sector employment base for us, and that's almost unheard of anywhere in the country. And because of the food and beverage and the diverse manufacturing we have a phenomenal business infrastructure. I like to call it that. It's not only the water and sewer, but it's the businesses that serve those manufacturing that are such an asset for us when we're working with companies. They can see that we have 20 companies that are international that are based here. They are very sophisticated and they have the kinds of capabilities from our subcontractors and the other businesses in order to be able to handle almost anything locally. We have the construction firms that can do that kind of work. And so we can tell a good story and then we can turn to the other companies and go, and if you have any questions, you can talk to these companies because they're doing it. We have the logistics, the transportation, proximity to larger markets, the Northern Virginia and the Richmond area, but also on I-81. I know a lot of people, we all talk about the I-81 curse is what I call it. Sometimes you can get stuck in there, but it is a major corridor.
Oh, for sure.
Linking the northeast markets to the southeast markets as well. And so that is an advantage. We know that we're not a fit for every company, but for those that are serving the East Coast and those two major markets, we are right in the middle. And so that tells us. We also have a lower cost on our land and commodities here a little. We're not that far below the national average, but we are below, and that's an advantage to us as well.
Yeah. I want to go back to something you said in the beginning of that response. You said most rural areas are not growing.
Correct.
Which to me is the result of not focusing on economic growth. I have a good friend of yours who I've heard say many times, if you're not growing, you're dying.
That's correct.
So, and I think something that folks don't often account for is if we're not focused on continually developing and creating good jobs, we're going to lose our young people.
Yes.
How much of that plays into what your mission is?
It is tremendous. It was the highest priority when I came here and when I told the interview committee that I was going to look at economic development a little differently because I was hearing all across Virginia. It was agnostic on location and agnostic the business sector. Everyone was looking for talent. We're still in a fight for talent, and that's not going to end anytime soon. So we're focusing on that. We talk about the quality of life amenities, and people go, oh, that's not a big deal. It's a huge deal now because the younger generations are making choices on where they want to live before they're making the choices on who they want to work for. We have phenomenal quality of life assets in this region, thanks to 10, higher education universities, 7 of those 4-year. When I reach out beyond that, beyond our footprint, we have Shenandoah University, and then we have the UVA across the mountains. And that brings a lot of cultural amenities and people from the outside here. We graduate more than 11,000 people. We are targeting that audience to stay here as much as possible. We know that a lot of the younger people are going to go, oh, I want to go into this city and so forth. But we have an amazing track record of people in their late 20s going, okay, we want to go back to where we came from. Economic development provides those opportunities for them. And that's one of the things that a lot of people don't understand. Yes, we're manufacturing, but those manufacturers, because of the size that they are here, they have every position that you can imagine, from engineering, production, business management, HR, operations, and technical positions as well. So that is part of the story that we're trying to tell and get those messages out to people. And yes, we want those companies, if they can hire those people, they continue to grow, and we're able to retain some of our young talent here.
Right.
So it is a very circular type argument, but as I say, there's a couple of things that we have to work on. Companies can't grow if they don't have the people. AI is not going to eliminate, most of these jobs. It's going to become a tool, but we have to have the people to fill those jobs.
Right. Exactly. And I'm glad, because there are people like you that focus on that, we get to live in a vibrant, growing area. So thank you for the work that you do. So one thing that I'm curious about is, what's the vetting process? I know you are trying to seek out new companies, but obviously not everybody's a great fit. So how do you determine what's a good fit for our area?
I appreciate you asking that question, because I think sometimes economic developers have the reputation, we'll just take anything at all. We can be intentional, and we are intentional in the Shenandoah Valley, because we understand there's a cultural, aspect to the region and growth, and we don't want to disrupt that. We embrace the food and beverage, anything agricultural. This is something that we're trying to celebrate more and work on, but I know that there is a lot of talk about, for example, data centers and hyperscalers that are in that. That's not a fit for us. Now, I will say, we have 2 data centers and no one knows about them. That's the kind, and we probably will see some data center activities, but that's the kind of projects that we want. No one knows they're there. They blend in with the others. A good example of projects that we probably would not work, and we have turned a couple of down. We received at the height of the EV campaign, going with batteries and those kinds of things. We turned a couple of projects down because they are just so massive. It would change the character of what the Shenandoah Valley is. I talked about the tourism aspect. We don't want to destroy that, And if you are not intentional and you bring in one of these huge projects, you may lose some of the character that makes the Shenandoah Valley the way that it is, and the way that people, they want to live here and work here. And so we are, really intentional about that. Something that would be a very, very heavy chemical process, I don't see it. I'm not sure we could support it. That's the other thing. We kind of know what we are, and we know what we're not. And so that gives us a good perspective when we're talking with our state partners or site location consultants that are considering the area. We don't want to waste time, their time or our time, on something that's not a good fit for the area.
Right. Fantastic. Fantastic. What a great conversation. Thanks so much for being here, Jay. And as always, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.